says, we should listen to Heraclitus. This is the voice of the great beginning. The Nazis have this fantastical genealogy according to which the German race, German nation, Germans, 1930 Germans, were literal descendants of the Greeks. I don't know if Heidegger believes that, but what he thinks is that German thought is the foundation of, Greek thought is the foundation of German philosophical thought, or should be, and so Heraclitus, we should listen to the voice of the great beginning. What is designated by Heraclitus is to stand up against the enemy, struggle as a holding out of the face of the enemy. The struggle is the rising up in being, the rising up in being, the original surging up from being, and the manifestation of truth. Now, Heidegger's idea seems to be that there's an essence to the German race that has been clouded over by various historical elements. And he does say in Being in Time, he translates, well, not translates, he says if you take the notion of truth and trace it back to its Greek roots, it will turn up in this word, aletheia, which he translates as uncovering. And so, now we come to this. Remember the pragmatist pattern. Truth is in correspondence with reality. It's, you put in something like efficiency or the truth. And I guess it's just for the German race, certainly not for liberal democracies. The truth for German race is that which is uncovered from the being of the people. It's hard not to sound like Heidegger. Is that which is uncovered from the being of the people, united by blood and earth by the true Führer. So, almost over. One moral is if a philosopher is going to be a pragmatist, there's no guarantee that he's going to be a nice one. As far as whether really this is a continuation of Being in Time, you could go, I guess, two ways. You could say in these seminars, and there are other works, Heidegger is propounding Nazi doctrines. That's clear. You got everything in there. You got the Führer principle, the German, the essence of German. There's a folkish nation. There's an essence there. It's tied with race, Blut, and the earth, the very ground we live on. And I threw away some of the somewhat veiled anti-Semitic remarks. I mean, who's the enemy? It's the Asiatic race, and they're the enemy because they're nomads, see, and they don't have a real homeland. So they can't understand why the Germans want a homeland, and so we got to get rid of them. At any event, two ways to go. One is Heidegger is propounding Nazi doctrine just as political philosophy. It's not a pragmatist theory of truth at all. Of course, the second is that he is propounding a pragmatist theory of truth. Now, I really want to assert not so much one or two, but a conditional. That if he's propounding a pragmatist theory of truth, then that's his doctrines are a continuation of Being in Time. But that's a conditional. I mean, it's really only the second that gives a reason to see the Nazi forces, the ones that he gave in the 30s, as continuing Being in Time. Maybe it's a stretch to interpret these seminars as offering pragmatic theory of truth. So that's why I call it a weak plus reason. And so I think that's what I need. Okay. Good. We have time for questions. Fred.
You mentioned a straight line lineage between Heidegger and the later postmodernists who have been, in my vague understanding, also in some ways characterized as fascists, many of them. Is that a legitimate deduction, and does it come in relation to Heidegger or from other strands?
I think postmodernism really comes out of European thought, and European thought is infiltrated with Heidegger. And I think once you deny truth and what end up with, for Heidegger it's uncovering, it sort of changes and it just becomes interpretation. In fact, in the later Heidegger, it really is interpretation. So you don't have assertions about reality, you have interpretations. There's your interpretation, my interpretation. And that kind of stuff, I think, gets filtered through folks like Derrida. And in fact, that's one of the attacks. I think it's not justified, but one of the attacks Emmanuel Faye's father makes on Derrida is that Derrida, by bringing in Heidegger's influence, has brought in somehow Nazism into this, and that's just silly. Now, one of the founders of deconstruction was at Yale. I can't remember his name, but he was Paul Deman. Yeah, Paul Deman was he Romanian? He was associated with fascists in World War II in whatever country he was. But I mean, I think that's another contingency. It's not. But I also think this is why the Europeans took these charges of Nazism so seriously. That it's not. Here's one philosopher. It's a philosopher that permeates the whole of continental thought. Is there a hand? I don't know. I saw a move. All right. Maybe I paused. Yeah, what?
From every point that I'm looking at it, it seems to me it's Nazi. First of all, from the truth, pragmatic truth. Since we don't know what is the truth, so it's a power struggle. And the convention that prevail, the strong is ruling. Like if we look at Popper, he agrees that we don't know what is the truth, but he's not give up on searching for it. And he gives us methodology. In science, it's refutation for theories, and in social science, it's critical discussion to prove to you that you're wrong. This is on the one hand. On the other things, when we speak about...
Excuse me, do you think Popper is a pragmatist?
It's a very difficult question. I think he's... In some respect, his methodology can lead to pragmatism, I think. But I will not call him pragmatist, that everything that is not pragmatic doesn't worth anything. But his methodology can lead to pragmatism.
I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
So this is the first. The second, we spoke a little bit indirectly about identity, individualism and romanticism. And according to the individualism, in both of them there's no question of identity. According to the individualism, it's all matter of choice. I can choose my own way. And this he kills. Now we go to the other side, the romanticism. Also there's no question of identity because it's determined by the heritage, by the tradition. And Jews that have a double identity are not human beings because or you belong to the tradition, the Nazi tradition, or you're not the human being, except of one person. This is the genius that can change the tradition. This is Hitler, this is Heidegger. So I don't see any something new here.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean something new. I mean,
In Heidegger, it's not new.
In Heidegger. Well, no, there's nothing new in what he's saying. I mean, he's just voicing National Socialism in a seminar. For what purposes, I'm not sure. Whether it's to advance himself or whatever. But the question is, given that it's Heidegger doing that, given that he's the man who wrote Being in Time, given a number of other things, like can this relate to Being in Time? Heidegger is not an original Nazi philosopher. In fact, part of Faye's book to prove or needed that Heidegger, he'll take writers both from the writers on the law, writers on politics of Germany at the time who are